What our dads didn't tell us about dating. Uncomfortable truths young men need to know about women and relationships. Written by Michael S. Chapman. Narrated by Timothy G. Little. Chapter 1. Introduction. This book is short but has a long history. I am offering you nothing but the truth and a promise to hurt your feelings. Sometimes feelings need to be hurt. Hurt is where the truth is. Hurt is the epicenter of an axis that tilts towards reality. The truth is hard to find these days because people are too weak to hear it. Men are too weak to bear it. We want to be heroes and live in a paradigm of justice and respect. We believe in standing up for the little guy. We root for the underdog and battle for democracy. The intent is honorable, the story inspiring, but the outcome, pathetic. Today, men are thought of as broken women. Boys are raised as broken girls, and any essence of masculinity is seen as misogynistic. This paradigm exists because men allow it to. Defeated men blame women. Weak men hate women, but strong men understand women. All men are capable of deviant acts. Each and every man walking the earth today has the ability to harm a woman physically. The overwhelming majority of men choose not to because we value honor, integrity, and respect. Every woman walking the earth today has the ability to destroy a man through manipulation. Many women refrain from utilizing this power. Many women love men and honor their commitments to them. Regardless, all women are capable of the unfathomable and malicious psychological terrorism. Men should not negotiate with or entertain these women. Men must possess the skill set to distinguish and avoid these women. Our fathers failed to educate us. They were brainwashed zombies of the feminist movement, which normalized the destruction of the male psyche. Our generation watched our fathers suffer in silence, turn the cheek to abuse, and accept defeat. The red pills outlined in these chapters are not meant to subjugate women and should not be weaponized. I have fallen on my ass many times in my life, and there has always been a woman there to help me up. Young women should know that there are evil men in the world who wish to harm them. They should be educated on the warning signs these men display and taught to outmaneuver them. The same holds true for young men. There are evil, selfish, and damaged women who wish to use them. Young men need to understand that they are not obligated to save women from themselves. Young men must understand that their life is theirs alone, and they can do whatever they want with it, with or without a woman in it. Chapter 2. Men do not matter. Why does a man wear a wedding ring? Man, it is a symbol of my commitment to her. Why does a woman wear a wedding ring? Woman, it is a symbol of his commitment to me. Narwhal. Remember when Dad would come home from work exhausted and no one cared? You do now because it was brought to your attention. The brutal but honest truth is no one cares how Dad's day was. Most men walk through their front door after work dodging their family. Smart ones make a pit stop at the gym or do themselves a solid before going home in the first place. It's depressing, but just as men do not receive validation for merely struggling, they are not allowed to exhibit struggle at all. Many of us had fathers that either kicked our asses because he had a bad day or drowned his sorrows in solitude or alcohol until he had to wake up and do it all over again. These men, our fathers, were programmed by society to believe that they deserve to suffer. They are taught from a young age that it is always the man's fault. Mom or sister can do no wrong. Most married men live a life of silent suffering. The majority of married men would be single if they knew then what they know now. Groups like MGTOW, Men Going Their Own Way, are gaining members faster than the Dollar Shave Club. Young men see the distress of their fathers and sense this hopelessness. These men fall for a selfish woman, get burnt, and refuse to do it again or to follow in their father's footsteps of man martyrdom. Society demonizes these groups as chauvinists because they do not understand them. Half of our society consists of women. Over half of the other half consist of pussy pedestalizing nice guys who perpetuate abuse towards men, and the rest of society is either neutral or doesn't give a shit, such as gay guys, playboys, guys who have quality partners, and asexual men. Men's rights organizations are exploding because men are imploding. The family court system subjugates men to paychecks. The liberal media panders to the extreme feminists, and our schools follow their lead. Men are beaten by women, mentally tortured, verbally abused, and financially drained, only to be accused later of inflicting the abuse they endured. It is important that young men see through the veil at an early age to save themselves from falling into this paradigm of heartbreak and servitude. The only thing a young man can do to maintain his worth as a human being in the realm of love and relationships is to stand his ground. He cannot fall into the manipulative traps set by women or believe that he must pander to them to be loved. Men love hard and dedicate themselves to those they love with selfless devotion. When a man falls in love with a woman who doesn't care about his physical and mental health as much as her own, he will be forced to forsake himself. The sacrifice in the beginning will seem worth it, but as time goes on and he loses his sense of self, his sacrifices will become less valuable, but her need for his sacrifices will inflate. In the beginning, a man will give up hobbies or passions to prove his commitment to the relationship. Seems legit. Trade a bowling league for a life partner who will love him forever. Years later, he will be giving up his retirement because she emotion shops or needs bioidentical treatments to bear menopause and keep her youthful appearance. He is decaying during this time, and his retirement will fund her ability to move on after she has used him up. This is why it is so important for young men to understand that they are better off bachelors than settling for a woman who does not put his needs before her wants. Should you spoil your woman? Hell yes. Should you love her through hard times? That goes without saying. But should you dedicate your happiness, fulfillment in life, career, health, and mental stability to making her happy or catering to her inability to control her own emotional state? Fuck no. Every person on this earth is responsible for their own success, life satisfaction, and self-esteem. It is not the job of a man to rescue, support, or cuck for any woman. Chapter 3. Don't get cucked. I used to think the worst thing in life was to be alone. It's not. The worst thing in life is to end up with people who make you feel alone. Robin Williams. Speaking of cucks, we all know what a cuck is, and whether we understand it or not, to each their own. Women do not want cucks. They settle for, then use them. Cuck is a term typically thought of as a man who lets his partner fuck other men. It can be used subjectively in other ways, though. If you pay her parents' bills or fund her girls' nights, you are her cuck. If you experience hardship and spend that time comforting her and ignoring your own pain, you are a cuck. If she blows money at Target that you would like to use to pay off debts or buy a house, you are a cuck. Women do not want a cuck. They do not see cucks. Men become cucks. If a man does not value himself, his money, or his health, he will become a cuck. She will lose all attraction for him, and rather than instantly move on, she will wait for another man who does not value himself but has more to give financially. Once a woman reaches this state, she is ruined. She will only be physically attracted to bulls and will only be able to commit to men who devalue themselves. Men do not fall into this hole on purpose, and women do not purposefully push them in. Let me explain. Every day is a new day. Every day a man must wake up and decide if he will fuck the world or be fucked by it. Yesterday's decision does not roll over into today. It is a choice a man must make independently every morning. Men get tired and battered by life at times. This can lead to exhaustion and require him to take a few days off from fucking life and take it in the ass without a reach around. If he does not make his mental and physical health a priority, he does not become strong enough to get up after being knocked down. Life keeps swinging, and since he spent more time strengthening his partner than himself, he is unable to recover. Days of being fucked become weeks, then months, then years. Then fucked becomes cucked. Rather than losing the only thing he has left, his partner, he allows her to do as she pleases, regardless of her neglect or sheer lack of respect for him as a human being. Young men who fall into the nice guy, friend zone, or feminist categories are not only susceptible to this fate, but destined. I almost did. I have had several relationships in which I failed to respect myself and wound up losing more than the relationship was worth and suffered psychological trauma. The women were not to blame. Women want a man who respects himself and will wake up every day, fuck life, then come home and fuck her just as hard. We can't change how men are treated on a macro level. Many organizations are trying to, but the societal shift necessary to accommodate this mindset shift is at least a decade away. We can help ourselves on a micro level, however, and not barter our self-respect, inherent value as human beings, and success for pussy. It would be a good idea to let our sons do this as well. Chapter 4. The woman with the most struggle points wins. The hunger for attention is an enemy of self-love. Edmund Baca. Imagine a man you know, friend, brother, uncle, coworker, etc., posting a status on social media. I am an independent man and do it on my own. What comments do you believe would follow this post? Well, duh, you're supposed to. Did you need a cookie or something? Or most likely, shut the fuck up, you're an idiot. Imagine a woman now posting the exact same status. Would the comments to follow not be words of praise and admiration? You go, girl. You're amazing. Heart emoji, heart emoji, heart emoji. Even if the man who posted the status was a single father providing for his child on his own with no help from the biological mother, he would still be shamed. Women are rarely left to fend for themselves and will say this even though they are receiving support. Men can honestly care less about petty shit like this, but we have to understand it to understand the women in our lives. It is not good or bad, fair or unfair, and definitely not something we should be upset about. We do, however, need to be weary of committing ourselves to women who do this. Do what? What are they actually doing? Seeking validation for struggling, not overcoming, accomplishing, or surviving, but merely struggling. A man is aware that he only gets a pat on the back if he wins or tries his hardest. Men understand that their mental and physical well-being are not of importance to society or the women they commit themselves to. A man must be perceived as strong and have every aspect of his life under control to gain any level of financial success or attraction from women. In other words, if a man seeks validation for providing, he is condemned because men do not get merit badges or brownie points for struggling. Men are only validated when they overcome the struggle. We want it to be this way. Men are strengthened by challenge and competition. To lower the bar would be to lessen the power we possess to change the world for the better. Women are validated for their inherent or perceived struggles because in today's society, women are perceived as more valuable without actually contributing anything of value. The women who succeed on their own merit are women who saw through the facade and sought success rather than struggle points. A reporter walked around New York City for an entire day asking women if there was anything men could do better than women. Only 2 of about 100 answered yes and gave superficial examples such as lifting things. Off the top of my head, I can think of remaining calm in stressful situations, protecting others, construction and mechanical inclination, dangerous, laborious, and physical work, fighting, sports, hunting. These are off the top of my head. I could fill up a notebook if I gave it some thought. Even though none of these examples demean, belittle, or objectify women, women still refuse to admit them. Why? Because they are perceived by society as more valuable than men, though logically they are not. If they admit the fact that men are more capable than women in any way, the fog of superiority hiding the truth will be blown away. The floodgates of equality will open, and they will have to actually become valuable to be seen as valuable. There are things women do better than men, too. Both sexes have strengths and weaknesses that complement the other, not take from the other. What does this have to do with women seeking validation for their struggles? Everything. A woman is dependent on others for validation because they are not expected to validate themselves. Since childhood, they have been taught that they maintain an inherent value simply for being female. They are taught that they should be catered to, protected, and given a pass on anything that might require grit. The problem is they become reliant on this outside validation. As adults are expected to take on adult responsibilities, which require them to exert energy for little or no praise. They are basically expected to do what men have been taught to do since elementary school. This is why the man that requests validation for his struggles is shamed, and the woman that requests validation for merely struggling is praised. Men typically ignore this behavior, and we should. Ignoring something does not mean you should be ignorant of it. This behavior is a red flag, and women who do it should be avoided at all costs. I know what you're thinking. Well, shit, I'll never find a partner then. Relax. It's not as hopeless as it seems. This does not mean you will not find the woman of your dreams. Not all women do this. This is not a blanket diagnosis of all women. This pertains to most women, and you have the right to be as picky as you need to be when considering a life partner. Many women struggle, work hard, and accomplish amazing feats in private. These are the women whom men in happy relationships are committed to. These are the women that a man can spend his life with without regret. Check off women who display this behavior and pay more attention to the women who boast accomplishments rather than problems. This personality trait in women is dangerous for men because the women who do this will shame their partner publicly without feeling any shame themselves. The woman who posts, "I do it on my own," is typically hiding support she receives, such as the man who is trying to be in his kid's life but can't win in a default mom wins court system. This type of woman will lie about abuse to gain sympathy from others. This type of woman will have others believe you are a deadbeat even if you contribute all you have. This type of woman will never be satisfied with anything you do for her. You will wake up after a decade of giving with nothing to show for it. How do you see these women coming before their serpent eyes snare you? Easily. These women refuse to take responsibility for anything. If they spill something, it's the cup's fault. They are always the victim. Every ex-boyfriend they've had was a sociopathic monster who neglected them or mentally and verbally abused them. They tell you their problems on the first date. They have no sense of humor and only smile if someone is looking. The number one tell sign is that the only times she shows any type of sweetness or caring is in front of other women or a camera. Chapter 5. Women have a shadow side. What a great advantage a man can have over women if he only knew what cold and calculating thoughts are going through her mind, while her eyes are brimming with tears. Esther Villar. True story. A man was relaxing on his couch watching Monday Night Football. He tried to drown out the neighbors fighting, but the TV volume was maxed out, so he politely knocked on their door and asked them to keep it down. They apologized and he went back to the game. A short time later, they erupted again. He heard the man hit the woman and she screamed. He rushed over, knocked on the door, which opened by itself, and saw him choking her. He tackled the guy, roughed him up a little bit, and called the cops. Once the cops showed up, the woman began defending her abusive boyfriend, and long story short, both men went to jail. She bailed out her boyfriend. The man had to fend for himself. His charge was lowered from trespassing to assault and battery. He had to break his lease, ruining his credit, and move out immediately because the victim lived next door. He was an armed guard, and because of his new charges, he lost his job. Sounds insane, right? It's not. It is actually quite common for men to pay the price for a woman's bad decisions. Women make decisions by feeling, not logic, and there is nothing you can do about it. Becoming upset or depressed about it will not help you navigate this in life. It is a red pill you must swallow and move on. Women use manipulation and lies to level the playing field because men are more physically powerful. This tactic seems unnecessary, even overkill to men. Women, however, believe that men are dangerous as a whole because they watch the women who raise them blame men for everything and tell tales of abuse for struggle points. Women are not raised to value respect. Without respect for oneself and others, it is impossible to blame yourself for anything. Instead of taking responsibility for self-destructive behavior, women will blame Stockholm Syndrome, the default psycho ex, or a daddy who worked too much. It does not matter. Women recognize this but will not admit it because they need it kept in their arsenal. Take the #MeToo movement, for example. It started out as a badass movement that gave actual victims of rape and sexual harassment a voice. The perps got thrown in jail or publicly disgraced, as they should be. But then what happened? Floods of women came forward. All of a sudden, every woman was #MeToo, and the actual victims got drowned out by the voices of attention-seeking, narcissistic women. It's fucking sad because women do not only do this to men, they will do it to other women as well. It is hard to fathom as a man why women seek this kind of attention. It is hard to believe that a person who does not have a personality disorder could be so self-centered. Any man who has been through a divorce or child custody hearing has seen the shadow side of a woman. Any man who has been cheated on by a woman who lied so easily to his face knows this reality. I am not implying that women as a whole are evil. Most women do not use men as pawns or bait for attention, but some do, and all are capable. It is important that young men are able to recognize a victimized woman. Regardless of whether her past abuse is true or struggle points, he has to decide how much he is willing to give of himself to her emotional GoFundMe account. Women have to be careful when playing the field. There are a lot of fucked up guys out there. This is why women shit test men. She will piss you off a little to see how you respond, play hard to get to find out if you're impulsive, and cock tease to see if you're weak enough to do anything for attention. These aren't games to women. These are survival mechanisms. Men need to use the same caution when maneuvering through the world of women. Prospective lovers and female acquaintances should all be thoroughly shit-tested. It is impossible to see a woman's shadow side before it's too late, but it's not impossible to find out her relationship past and present. Some things you have to live through to understand. Sometimes you can dodge a bullet altogether. As hard as it might be to say no, always say no to sex and favors before getting to know her. Sticking your dick in crazy one time can fuck you up for life. One-night stands are Russian roulette, and many men are doing 7 years of hard time for 7 minutes of sex. It's harder these days to make a false rape claim, but that doesn't stop some women from trying. At 20 years old, I discovered my wife had cheated on me at least 5 times with different men. I told her I wanted a divorce, and she downed a bottle of pills. I called 911, and as they were taking her to the ambulance, she told them that she took the pills because I beat her up every day. Guess who had to deal with the police, pay medical bills, find her an apartment, and got labeled as a wife beater? Yeah, it sucked. Guess who moved a friend of mine she was fucking into the apartment I had to pay for? That was actually a good thing because she left me alone after that. My case was an extreme case. I lucked out because my parents had money at the time, so I was able to ask them for help and kept custody of my daughter. Imagine if the cop wasn't skeptical of her. Imagine if I didn't have financial help. I would be a felon and my daughter would probably hate me. I was lucky. Many men are not and pay a huge price because they were unaware of a woman's shadow side. A woman's shadow side and her need to be perceived as struggling are co-conspirators. The more she needs to be seen as a victim, the more victimized she will need to become. Maintaining a 100-yard perimeter from women who display these traits is a minimum. Shit-testing women to understand where her morality lies is not foolproof, but can be effective in uncovering warning signs. Ask her about her past. How quickly does she identify herself as a victim? If you ask her where she grew up and she becomes irate because her hometown is full of abusers, take it as a red flag. If she mentions any abuse or crazy exes on the first night, red flag. If she asks you for any kind of personal favor on the first night, red flag. If she's not happy to be there or is not enjoying your company, red flag. If you tease her about something and she becomes irate or moody, red flag. If she actually likes you, she will shit test you. This means that she's sane. Shit tests are not red flags. Shit tests are a sign she is an intelligent woman. A quality woman knows men who cannot handle shit tests are insecure and the most likely men to become violent or cheat. Victimized women do not shit test men. That's why they were victimized. Respond to shit tests lightheartedly and make sure she does too. Trust your gut, not your dick. If she makes you uneasy in any way, slow things down. Do not extend the night, but contact her via phone to get to know her better. In the long run, it is better to come off as curious or nosy than as an easy target. Chapter 6. Impossible Solutions to Practical Problems. If you're not her priority, you're only an option. Private Man. Problems are only solvable if the person with the problems wishes to solve them. Take weight loss, for example. It is physically impossible in any dimension to gain fat in a calorie deficit. Or money. A savings account cannot grow if your expenditures exceed your income. These are common sense, no bullshit examples of solvable problems. These are universal laws written on the tablet of common sense by the gods of physics. As straightforward as these solutions to practical problems are, most women struggle with them. Why? Because they implore impossible solutions to practical problems. But why? Because they do not wish to solve the problem. An impossible solution is an avoidance tactic women use to gaslight men into believing they wish to solve a problem. This is a fire alarm that men don't hear. They subconsciously see smoke, but in reality, they don't smell the fire. When a woman gives a man impossible solutions to practical problems, she is done with him. She has moved on mentally and is only waiting for the opportunity to move on physically. Open your mind and imagine this scenario. A couple is struggling to connect in their relationship. The man suggests they spend more time together outside of the home and have a little fun, blow off some steam. The woman proceeds to list off her never-ending list of responsibilities and tells the man it is not possible to free up the time. The man calculates the time and energy needed to complete the list of tasks and offers to complete them himself on Saturday so they can go out on Sunday. What seems like a practical solution will be dismissed by the woman as impossible. She will then spend the weekend accomplishing nothing but a manic fit to prove the point. Bottom line, she does not wish to strengthen her relationship. Scenario 2. A couple has inverted libidos. The man has a high sex drive and the woman has a low sex drive. The man is honest with his partner and expresses his sexual frustration. The woman explains her desire to have sex is out of her control. Her hormones are out of whack and she is stressed out. The man does not object, but his mind naturally seeks a practical solution, all of which will be shot down regardless of how easy they are to implement. In these cases, the man is typically a yes ma'am guy in the relationship. He does more than half of the housework and is completely involved in every aspect of the relationship. He has common sense. His common sense equated stress to this problem and has already taken steps to relieve her minimal but exaggerated stress levels. He knows that women have hormonal complications and is understanding of her biological issues. He also knows that exercise, a healthy diet, date nights, extended foreplay, and time together away from the monotony of life is pretty much guaranteed to raise anyone's sex drive. If a woman wishes to have a healthy sex life with her partner, she will do these things by herself because she wants to solve the problem. She is smart enough to understand that physical affection under the sheets is just as important as taking turns folding them in a relationship. Stress and hormones. These are factors that cannot be seen or measured without medical diagnostic equipment or disagreed with. These are impossible solutions to practical problems. If she wanted to have a healthy sex life with her partner, she would. Scenario 3. A couple has been arguing for months and cannot effectively communicate. They are on the verge of breaking up, but holding on in hopes of reconciliation. They are working-class people. They make enough to pay the bills, but have to budget what is left carefully. They argue and listen to each other but cannot hear the other. They fail to understand the other's point of view and feel slighted by each word said. Every time the man naturally displays his desire to remedy the issue by supplicating or giving in to her perception, he asks her what she needs from him. He is willing to do anything to get them out of the vicious cycle that is tearing them apart. Every answer she has is a vague reply littered with unfinished sentences and rhetoric. What she says she needs from him are things he's already doing, but is not doing in a particular manner. Basically, making the practical solution impossible to implement, such as, we need to see a therapist. She knows they cannot afford couples therapy. That is why she said it. He says he will work more hours to earn the extra funds. She says she doesn't have the time in the evenings. He says he will purchase a course or download a free one and they can do the work together before bed. She says she's too stressed out and has to get her hormones in check. If she wanted to solve the problem, she would. She does not want to solve the problem and therefore will only accept impossible solutions to practical problems. When a relationship begins, this should be a shit test men give the women to find out how serious she is about her relationships and responsibilities. What excuses does she give when asked about problems she faces? Is her life a mess because she does not have the time or hormonal levels needed to address them? Or are there practical solutions that she is implementing to improve her situation? Is she fighting with her sister at the moment because her sister didn't pay her back the money she borrowed, or because, God, I don't know, she's just like me. I'm a Gemini and she's a Cancer, so... She will handle your relationship problems the exact same way. Make sure you are committing yourself to a woman who is actually willing to solve them when they arise. Chapter 7. The So Sad Stepdad. And just as an aside, if you are a step-parent, rush right out and get yourself a dog, because it's very nice to have someone in the house that loves you. Delia Ephron. What did you want to be when you grow up? Someone awesome, right? An athlete, a fireman, a rock star. Someone little boys looked up to and wanted to be like, right? It melts your heart when you see a little boy meet his hero, and you want to shove your foot up the ass of any man who neglects or harms children. I get it. I'm the same way. That perspective on life is ingrained in us by our physiology. This is the mindset a man has when he volunteers to take responsibility for another man's child. If the world we live in was just, if the space we occupied on this planet had more value than the flicker of our mere existence, and if life was actually fair, the good guy would win, the hero would be exalted, and the martyr extinct. In the actual realm we exist in, however, the martyr is sadly a default state of many men. Not all men. Many men become who they dreamed of being. Many men achieve great feats, and many men live lives of actual value. Let me ask you a question, a real question, a no bullshit, fuck your feelings, be honest question. How many of them are stepdads? How many of them gained any level of success, independence, or notoriety after becoming stepdads? How many stepdads do you know exist for no other reason but to cater to the needs of his stepchildren and their mother? If you cannot answer this question, I implore you to gaze into the depths of the abyss. Stepdads are legally, financially, and physically responsible for the kids they have chosen to support, but have no say in how. You must pay the rent, but have no say in household rules. You can demand respect, but the acquisition of respect will be forced at best. The package deal that you agreed to is a contract of giving. There is nothing to receive besides a few scattered moments of overly sentimental validation. Sounds harsh, I know, almost hopeless. Honestly, it is. I am a stepson. I love my stepdad and think the world of him. He is an intelligent, strong, loving, and capable man. But if I am brutally honest, he is nowhere near where he could be in life because of my sister and me. He was an entrepreneur, a tradesman with a brilliant business mind. He could be a millionaire like his dad was. He is not, though. He is 62 years old and working as a maintenance man at a prison, slaving his golden years away for a pension. He had the brains to be successful and the physical capabilities of a master craftsman. What happened? We happened. He worked his ass off all day to build a business and came home to reap the rewards of his honorable stepdad sacrifice. A wife who was an emotional wreck because of my biological father's abuse, and 2 kids who looked at him like no more than a substitute teacher. I am a stepdad too, have been for 11 years. I love the kid and his mom, but if I could go back in time, I would turn around the second I saw her. When you fall in love with a woman, you fall in love with her essence and have no footing in reality. The reality is, most divorced women are divorced because they cheated or drove the man they were with so insane he had no other choice but to run. Picture every man you know. What percentage of them would abandon their kids? There's a few. I know a few too, but the overwhelming majority of men would never do such a thing. They left because the cops were going to incarcerate him the next time she threw a shit fit and blamed it on him, or he couldn't handle the thought of being a cuck. Could you? Could you live with a woman who has the smell of another man's dick on her breath? Could you lay down at night and sleep beside a woman who just got fucked by someone else? Would you take a domestic violence felony charge because she was on her period and couldn't control herself? That, my friends, is why most women with children are single, and that is why men leave. It is biologically wired in us to protect our children, and sometimes, most times, that is what men do by leaving. There are bad men in the world. There are men who abuse women and children to feed their own sadistic needs and garner power. These men are the bottom of the barrel, and these men are the fuel that feeds the notion of toxic masculinity. These men should be dealt with in kind and exiled, but in reality, these are the men women have kids with. What's the connection? A stepdad is many times taking on the responsibility and lifelong commitment of being completely responsible for a woman who is playing the victim and taught her kids the same behavior. Sometimes the woman and child are emotionally scarred by a deranged man. Basically, nice guy bait. You are the honorable savior or the always helpful victim. You go, dude. You're amazing. Until you wake up one day to try to figure out how the fuck you spent 20 years working your ass off and have nothing to show for it. Or idealize suicide when they tell you their problems and bitch about their needs all night. Her fine ass doesn't look so good now, does it? The thought of being the valiant man who stepped up to the plate doesn't seem like much of a hero's journey anymore. Sure, you get some Facebook props over the Christmas pictures, but Christmas sucked. The kid's emotional issues ruined every moment you and her could have shared. Her emotional issues left you sitting in the garage bawling like a bitch because you mean absolutely nothing to either of them, but gave them everything you had or ever could have been. It's fucking harsh, but it's the reality of most stepdads. She fell in love with a guy and had a kid. She fell out of love and either cheated or drove him insane. If not, then ran away from a psycho prick that, by the way, you will have to deal with for a long time to come, and hug the kids when they tell you they miss him. After leaving for whatever reason, she rode the cock carousel until she was so played out she had to settle for you. You, my friend, are the last stop on that ride, the final destination until the carousel starts again or you divorce after 2 awesome years followed by a decade of martyrdom. This is not a bitch fest about women. Women do what they have to do to survive in a world where the smallest of half the population could do serious physical harm to them. Women exist in a realm of constant psychological warfare that we could never comprehend. I am not insinuating that women trap men into the stepdad role or purposefully continue the cycle. They are as stupid as young women as we are as young men and fall into the same traps we do navigating young adulthood. The difference is women get pregnant. The law sees the child as theirs more than the father's, and when a relationship falls apart, the authorities give the woman more rights to that child than the father. Whether she wanted it or not, she is now solely responsible, and most women cannot handle being single mothers. Women who were abused usually suffer in silence. Women who were the abuser typically testify to being abused every chance they get. This is important to know because your protective nature as a man will cause you to fall for the damsel in distress. Real damsels in distress don't tell anyone. You will fall for a cheating, emotionally abusive woman because you believe that is the case. Women who were actually abused do not advertise their abuse. The woman who lures you in with tales of suffering is actually the cause of her own and will be the cause of yours. Women who were actually abused suffer in silence and will drain you with a never-ending emotional roller coaster of manic depression. The kids do the same thing as the mother, but in rebellion. The kid who knows the mother was the cause of them losing their father cannot admit this to themselves because she is their only sense of stability. They will act out uncontrollably due to the cognitive dissonance their young minds are too young to process. The kids who were fathered by actually abusive fathers will struggle for a sense of power and most likely become manipulative and covertly rebellious. I was the latter. My sister was younger than me and didn't see the abuse, so it was more overt. Either way, we ruined every day of my stepdad's 30s. The only thing that saved his 40s was we both left home the second we could. Then my mom went through menopause, and he went from being a businessman to a maintenance man. These truths seem harsh, but they're real. The reality of being a stepdad is much different from the stereotypical Hollywood version of a man who struggled for a cause and found his purpose in life. The real-life version is one of struggle without reward. This is a vicious cycle because every woman knows that she can spread her legs and get whatever she wants. The only challenge is getting it long term. I'm not saying write off a woman who has children. I'm asking you to put the decision in perspective before you make it. Chapter 8. Should a man go his own way? We're a generation of men raised by women. I'm wondering if another woman is really the answer we need. Tyler Durden. Should a man go his own way? Depends on what he wants out of life. Or in other words, what he's willing to trade it for. I implore men to look at other men. Study your heroes. Research great men and learn the habits of successful entrepreneurs. Many of them are bachelors. Most of them have 3 ex-wives, and all of them do not sing the praises of the female gender. A man is more capable of sustaining an amazing lifestyle by himself. It is actually easier to sustain an amazing lifestyle as a bachelor. The only catch is we are biologically wired to love and adore women. It is not about sex. Any man who has had an abundant sex life will testify to the lack of fulfillment he receives from countless one-night stands. Men desire women because they desire to love deeply. Men want to have children for the same reason. A man has to understand himself, validate himself, and fulfill himself before he knows whether he wants a woman forever or as arm candy. Neither is right or wrong. If a man comes to terms with himself and realizes he wants to be an explorer or 90-hour-a-week entrepreneur creator, then he should be free to do so. Society will not agree because society believes a man needs a woman to be worth anything. If a man relishes the thought of a humble home filled with children, that is his right to pursue as well. He must understand that the family he chooses to create must be his life purpose, and he has to choose the woman he creates his family with extreme caution. Society will have men believe that they are worker bees and should spend their life toiling away in misery for the benefit of society. By society, of course, I mean the same society that laughs at the black eyes a woman gave him and the fact that he would do anything to spend a weekend with the kids he was ripped away from. Here are some truths every young man needs to know. You do not have to support a woman. You do not have to get married. You do not have to have kids. You do not have to settle down. You are not obligated to save women. You are not obligated to be a stepdad. You are not responsible for another man's actions or abuse. This is a short list of antidotes to the lies society wants you to believe. If you are a protector by nature, join the police or military. Save a shitload of women from trafficking instead of your whole life dealing with one woman's bad boy fetish. If you love children, you can become a teacher or travel to third world countries and help thousands of children. You do not have to relegate yourself to supplemental income because your kid's biological father can't pay child support. Becoming a father or spouse is a choice. It is a choice you make and one that cannot be taken back. If you feel that being a family man is what you desire the most, then by all means start a family and do the best damn job you can at making your home a happy one. Just know that either way you go, you are 100% responsible for your own happiness and success. You are also accountable for the children you have and the woman you had them with. In my opinion, men should go their own way until they know for sure what they want. Simply put, a wife and kids can be had at pretty much any age. Your 20s and 30s cannot be reset, and it is during this time that you will learn who you are and what you are capable of. I was married with a child at 17. The marriage was miserable. Fatherhood was awesome, and I became a single dad at 20. I was lucky enough to keep half custody of my daughter, and she lived with me during the week. Those years were magical, and I do not regret remaining single during that time. I was an Army reservist who deployed overseas, an entrepreneur, and had not only an amazing social life, but a prolific sex life. There were a few short-lived semi-relationships during that time, and each time I was veered off course. Her wants overstepped my needs, and I became a servant to the ever-changing emotions of a woman. I was able to recover after each one and stay the course. Like most men, I love the company of a woman. Women are not a curse to men. Women are a blessing to men if he respects himself and maintains his bearings at all costs. Women are not weak, victims, or oppressed. They can be when convenient, and this ability is kryptonite to Superman. Chapter 9. Fight the Good Fight. The only defense against bad men is good men. The only defense against bad women is not allowing them in our lives. Shane Chapa. At some point, every man will suffer a broken heart. There will come a point in a young man's journey that he will look back and face regret. These pains are the friction that light the fire in men. Do not get discouraged or let your heart grow cold with red pill rage. Women do not intend to harm men or take from them. Women are navigating life just as you are and face challenges we cannot understand. You do not need a woman to be great, but a good woman will empower you to be greater. A good woman will desire the best for you and make your needs a priority as you should do for her. Remember that you are valuable. You have the ability to help those in need. You have the right to decide who you give your heart to and who you share the fruits of your labor with. Love and protect the women who love and protect you. Wake up every morning and hold yourself accountable for your own well-being and self-esteem. Make the conscious decision to live a life of virtue. Stand your ground. Refuse to be oppressed or to be the oppressor of anyone else. Be the man you wish your father could have been. This has been What Our Dads Didn't Tell Us About Dating. Uncomfortable truths young men need to know about women and relationships. Written by Michael S. Chapman. Narrated by Timothy G. Little. Copyright 2020 by Shane M. Chapa. Production copyright by Shane M. Chapa.